Welcome to this video. What we're going to do now is show you how to make a more advanced thumbnail. So as you can see right here, we've got a pretty cool looking thumbnail. Again, you can use Canva. It's going to be very similar concepts, but again, this is going to be a cool way, and it's all going to start here in Photoshop. So download Photoshop. I believe you have to pay for it monthly now. So if you want, you can do most of this in Canva, and we're going to create a new thumbnail. So similar to this, we want to create a cool looking thumbnail that will catch people's attention. This video with this thumbnail is going to be premiering on Thursday, so tomorrow for us. So again, we have things nice and scheduled, and compared to some of our older ones, this one's pretty cool. So how do we create this? We're going to create all from scratch. You could use Canva, but for this one, we're going to be using Photoshop. So if you're a Photoshop user, that's why I want to do this for you. So what we're going to do is just create a new selection. So if I go to the main screen here, we have to create a new project. So it's very important to know that YouTube, the recommended size is going to be 1280 by 720. So you don't want to be any bigger or any smaller than that. That's what we want to use. So once we are in here, if we look through film video, yeah, there is a an HD TV option, and this is similar to what we want to use, but we could also just create it from scratch. So if we do look at web, they have tons of different options in here, but again, if we can, we want to pretty much go custom. So we're going to go to preset details. So this is going to be used for an interview with the sports card investor. So we could even write that. Interview with a capital sports card investor. So that's going to be the title, and then the thumbnail will maybe be something different. So we could even copy that text, and we want it 1920 by 720 max and under 2 megabytes. So that's very compressed. So if we do that and we hit create, this is the size that we're looking for. And we may even have to compress it. It needs to be 2 megabytes or smaller, I believe. So if we do look here, yeah, 2 MB limit. So it's not very small, but what we're gonna do is go to the Finder. And in our Finder, under Student Resources, you're going to have these 4 images. So we need to import these 4 images for you. So as you can see here, we've got a thumbnail, we've got a background, we got our logo, and then we have a little sports card. So you're going to be given access to this. These are our images that I created, so you are given the right to use them for the project. So we're going to bring these files over. Again, you'll be able to download these. You can import it by going to Photoshop, open. That's one way of doing it. For us, all we're going to do is take the images and throw it on top. So now we've got our one image imported, our other, and then as you can see here, it is also creating little layers for us. So we're also importing a video right now, so it may lag a touch. But if we look here, we've already got some of our layers and our photos being imported. So let's make sure we have the rest here as well. So we've got our third, fourth. So there we go. What you can do is go to View option, then you can adjust some of that stuff as well. Here you've got rulers, and all these other different parameters. But again, we just used, we did a cutout for this recently for this one right here, which looks pretty cool. So that's kind of the style that we're going to be going for. So as you can see here, we have all these layers. Our background layer is what's important. We're going to double click that and call that our back. And then what you want to do right off the gate, what's really important is you want to name everything. So if we haven't done that for you, you want to name everything. And what we'll do is we'll hide all of these other images. We'll just have a clean background. And if we double click here, that's all set in stone. That's good. what you want to do is name everything. So the first one, and when you hit this icon, this will show it and unshow it. And I've been using Photoshop for a really long time, so you know, this is just whenever they have a new software update, I'm like, man, this is changing all the time. So we're gonna do red backdrop, and this is actually just a screenshot from our intro, so it's pretty cool. And then again, Command plus, that will allow you to zoom in and out. I want to be nice and tight. I want to fill up the screen with this. So let's show our next image. Maybe we'll bring the layers around different. This is going to be a player, so this is going to be our Louis Robert card. He's actually a really good baseball player. I'm very bullish on him as an investment. And then our third image is going to be our screenshot. So that's going to be Bird. That's going to be my brother. And then we're just going to hide these for now. And what we want to do is get the layers organized. And the other one is going to be the Red Cape Sports logo. And that's showing right here. So we're going to hide everything. And what we want to do is set up our layers. So the next image that we should see, and then on top of that will be these other images. So you want to set up your layers. That's really important. So the bottom will be our background. That's going to be the back. So transparent. And then if we click, we have a nice white backdrop. And then we also have Bird. So what we want to do is add this red backdrop behind Bird. So we'll have this. And for now, what we're going to do is we're going to hit Command T. And we're going to hold on to Shift. And we're just going to fill this up. Okay, and we'll get back to this later. So what we're going to do is just make this bigger. And we're going to fill up the entire screen. And we have these lines right here that make it look centered. So now we know it's centered. And then we can even lock the image if we want to. So yeah, that's what we have right there, which is great. And we could even lock this. So when you lock the image, which is a really cool technique, as you can see right here, when we lock the image, now we won't accidentally delete something or move it. And now this image in the back is all set up. So we're gonna hide the red and we're gonna click on Bird. Now we're gonna go over one really cool tool, probably arguably one of the most important tools. We're gonna crop around him. So if we zoom in a little bit as well, this should be a 4K screenshot. It should look decent. What we're going to do now is go up here where it says the lasso tool. We're going to right click and use the magnetic tool. We can use the lasso or the other one, but again, it's all about efficiency, getting this nice and good and close. So what we're going to do is just go near the top of the hat, and we're just going to bring our mouse or whatever you're using, and we're just going to go around the hat. And this is going to magnetically, see, even if I'm off a bit, it's going to basically crop around the hat. And if we make a mistake, you just hit delete. And what we want to do is get this really nice and close to cropping right around him. And then we can also click as well. So we can make our own clicks. But this is one great way of cropping a person or an item. And then again, maybe around the ear will make it even better. And then you can even get rid of any imperfections. His shirt was a little bacony that day, whatever you want to call it. You know. So again, we're just going to work our way around. And it's all about steps. If you haven't done this before, it's no big deal. But just zoom in if you have to, and just do sections at a time. Okay. So right here, boom. What we're gonna do is just bring this around, and we're just gonna connect it to this, and hit enter. So now we have all this selected. Now what we're going to do, so now we're gonna zoom out and we can see what we have selected. And what we're gonna do is either hit delete, or we're gonna go to the eraser tool. So what we can do is make sure that the bird selection is made, and we're going to hit delete. And if you're not if you've never used Photoshop before, there's tons of content, and we're just gonna Command Z. So always Command Z, that'll bring you back. So we could also use the eraser. That's a great method, or you could just hit delete and that will delete there. So now we're starting to delete around him. So now we're deleting around him and we're going to finish. So we're gonna make sure that nothing else is selected, not this. We're gonna make sure bird is still selected and we're going to zoom in. And again, we're gonna finish our little lasso tool here. And we're just gonna go around the hat. And the goal is just to separate him completely from the background. And we're gonna make him pop. We're gonna make a cool thumbnail. We're gonna make it pop. And of course, this takes more time. If you want to, you could just use the image itself. You don't have to go to do this work. Again, I'm somewhat taking my time. I could go even quicker. I could go even slower at this. And we will hit enter. We'll go back and we will hit delete. So this eraser tool will go up here to the top left. We'll make the size bigger. Make sure the hardness is 100, so that will delete everything. And we're just gonna do a little touch up around all the edges here. And we'll do more after. And we're just gonna delete some of the major stuff here. So if we were to toggle this layer on, you could see the nice red. So we're starting to get somewhere. Again, this is just a simple screenshot that we took. There weren't a lot of good options for this particular interview. It was somewhat serious. So what we're gonna do is make this size smaller. We're gonna go to about 30, and we're just gonna do a couple little touch-ups. So what we're gonna do is make sure we can see all the white, and that will expose all the little imperfections that we may have missed. So we do want to go over all of this. And as you can see here, we deleted the white here. So what we can do is just grab this paint bucket and fill this in with white. So we want to have a solid white for the background. And then again, it's all about zooming in. So we want to zoom in relatively close. I also did a recent crop with Phil. So for Phil Ebner, I did a little crop for him. So we're going to grab the eraser and we're just going to go over everything. You can get in pretty nice and tight here. We're just going to do one quick swoop here. Don't waste all your time on small things. Jim Rohn said it best. Spend major time on major things. Don't spend major time on minor things. This is a minor thing. This is a thumbnail. Okay, it's not the end of the world if it's not 100% perfect. Get it 95% perfect. Okay, so just remember that. Don't be spending 12 hours on a thumbnail. It's not worth your time. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the image, which is bird, and we're gonna go to image and we're going to go to brightness and contrast. So as you see when we bring up the contrast, which we need, typically when I shoot the image really flat and then we could do all this work in post. So if I bring the contrast up, that's going to stretch out the image a little bit because it's getting a little more saturated as well. Now, if we look at our little histogram in the top here, we want to make sure that the image fits inside. If we go too far to the right, it gets overexposed. If we go too far to the left, it's too dark and it's underexposed. We want something that looks fine. And see on the cheek here, if we zoom in, we want to make sure that that is not overblown. So for example, if we bring it here, it's too dark. Here, it's too bright. So we want to make sure that there's information there. So if we go to about here, that looks good. And that's going to be at about 50 IRE. So 0 would be to the left, 100 would be all the way to the right. This isn't the best scope. It doesn't give you a lot of information. But typically you want to make sure that your skin tone is at about 50. And then it's going to be a little bit different depending on, Caucasian or whatever other skin tone that you have. So bird's pretty white. My brother's pretty white. So that's what... So that's going to dictate a little bit of the brightness that we're going to use too. So something like this looks pretty good. Just make sure you're not too far up or too far down. Don't go crazy with this. And then that looks pretty good. What we're going to do next is go to the image. We're gonna hit OK. So we're gonna hit OK, and we're gonna go to the image, and then what we're going to do is go to Hue and Saturation. This image, we need to add more saturation, so you can see the reds popping. So again, we're gonna go to probably something appropriate. 42 looks nice. And then for the hue, that's gonna change and take a bit of the green out. So we're gonna go -4. And then lightness, we'll bring that probably at 5. And then now, if we go to brightness and contrast, we could bring the brightness up a little bit if we want to, or lower. I actually think we should be, even if it's overexposed a bit on the cheek, it's fine. So we'll do something like this. This is starting to look pretty good. Something like that. If we were to look at our original image, this is what we've already created. There's a lot more color. If you look into the skin tones here, it's more vibrant. There's a little less green as well, even in comparison. So this is starting to look pretty good. We're getting somewhere. And hopefully some of this makes sense to you. If it doesn't, it's okay. Just understand that, you know, it depends on what your show is. For us, we're going for more of a high key look. For me, I like this. It looks fine with the red in the background. Starting to look pretty cool. So let's move on. Let's go on to the next step. That's going to be duplicating the image for us. So what we're going to do is duplicate the layer. We're going to hit OK. And now we have two images. The one behind it, we're going to click. And we're going to hide the top one. So now we're on the bottom image, and we're just going to hit right click. So what we're going to do, so we just duplicated both images. And then what we're going to do now is go make sure that the bottom one is selected. And what we're going to do here is we're going to double click. Now we've got all these menu systems and everything. We're going to do a color overlay. And some of the colors that we use on our show are more of a blue. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to go for a bit of a dark blue. Pretty dark blue here. And then what we're going to do is just add a little drop shadow. So that's going to be pretty cool. We're going to make the distance out a little bit. So we can do something like that. I kind of like this. So now when we bring in our other layer, and we hit Command T, if we shrink the image, we'll have a nice little blue behind it. And I think that's kind of cool. Kind of makes everything pop a little bit. And then again, you could mess with all of your little layers there too. So we could take off the drop shadow, add it. You could spread it. You could make this drop shadow bigger, adjust the angle. So we'll probably do something similar to this. Tighten it up. And then obviously you could change the color as well. So if you weren't happy with that, you could mess around with the color. You can even make it red. We can see what white looks like. White doesn't look so great. Typically these are going to be the colors we use. I kind of like the yellow. What we're going to have though is blue on the side. We're going to make little triangles. So I want to keep things somewhat consistent. I want to have gradient of colors, and I want it to be subtle enough. So this is kind of cool. Maybe something like a darker blue I'm pretty happy with. So something simple. I like the drop shadow. And that's it. That's going to be our little cutout that we make. So much more dynamic when we compare it to this. So already we've got something cooking there. But what we can do at least is show our little logo. Command T that. And we could bring that to the corner, and we have these little guides with us as well. And then behind that, we can add a little drop shadow. So that'll give it a bit of a punch. And then we could also adjust the opacity of the drop shadow. Distance, we'll keep it closer. Maybe a bit more of a spread. And a little bit less of a size. So that's pretty cool there. For now on, I don't think we'll need the guides. Typically, you don't need them at all, but we could always bring them back in and move them. So for the red backdrop, we're just going to go to Image. And even here, we can go to Exposure. And then we could change the exposure of that. So again, we are playing with everything here. You got to remember, how bright is he? We want to make bird pop. We want to make the interviewer pop. We want to make him look good. So let's add a bit of contrast, not too much. We can mess with the gamma a little bit. And I like that. So what we're going to do is click on the layer and we're going to go to filter. And then what we want to do is basically make them sharper. So we're going to go to sharpen. And as you can see here, he's starting to pop a little bit more. We've made that nice and sharp. And then if we double click here, so what we could do is go to the sharpen mask, and then we could really dial in how sharp we want the image to be. So for us, we want it to be pretty sharp. Then we could change the radius, the threshold. So what we could do here is right click, and what we're going to do is create a little size here. We're going to create 2 of these. And then here's how you move. And then again, right click, you can create a circle. For us, we created a rectangle tool. And actually, we're just going to delete the first one here. So we're just going to delete a couple of them here. You want to make sure it's on the rectangle layer. And we're going to hit Command T. And what we're going to do is make sure that we have this. If we go to the corner, we're going to rotate this. And then here, we can make the size a little bit bigger. What we're going to do is change the color. So if we click on the color here, maybe we'll click on the yellow. So we'll hit the bucket, we'll hit on the yellow. And then what we can do is take the color that we used from before. We'll bring this up. Maybe a little more blue. And then we're just going to dump that color into the rectangle. So we're going to hit here and switch to blue. And then now we've got a nice little blue in the corner. So now that we have that little triangle, what we can do is create another one. So we could go over here. So once we create that rectangle, we can create a few more. Again, we will hit Command T on a Mac. And then what we're going to do is bring down the opacity of the first one to about 80. So now the second one, when we bring it over, when we put it over, we'll have this nice little line. And I kind of like the look of that. And again, we'll do the same thing. We'll create another T. And then that'll create rectangle 3 in the corner. And then what we'll do is maybe take birds images. And what we're going to do is we can select them both. And we'll bring that over just a touch. So what we'll do is maybe even add some text. We could resize things a little bit. And we'll hit the lock on that. And we'll hit the lock. Okay. So we have that. And then if we go to rectangle 3, Command T, we have our different size there. And then what we can do is just hit our rectangle, create one more. Rectangle 3, we're going to bring the opacity down to 83. Rectangle 4, Command T, again, make this a little bigger. And then as we bring it over, we'll have this nice little color here. So as you can see, we've got a lot of focus going towards the middle of the frame, which is really cool. So now, if we were to already compare it to this, we're getting somewhere. So we'll go back from there. And if we look at our Red Cape Sports logo, I wrote interview with a sports card investor, and I just put a pic of bird. So that's going to be one thing. And I know he's talking about, specifically in this interview, he's talking about a couple of key sports cards and whatnot. So what we're going to do is just create a little text. So we're going to add another layer, and we're going to hit the T. And what we're going to do is we're going to write sports card investor interview. We're going to make this white. And we're going to make the size bigger. Sports card, investor, interview. So what we're going to do is make sure that all this text is selected. We're going to bring it towards we're going to hit this middle marker. And for our show, we use Arial and Arial Black. So this is going to make a lot of sense for us. And what we can do is just change the size of this. So you could also do full interview. With a sports card investor. Then here we could even change the size of specific areas. Here we can make this bigger. Again, you're just kind of having fun. You're feeling out the project. You're also trying to make it consistent to what you've been doing with your channel and your work as well. So for us, we're just going to make this text pretty big. Let's just go for it. We're not going to do full interview. Again, you want to take information and take out what's not important. Here we'll just do interview with a sports card investor. I like that. I think that's kind of cool. Again, we'll make it a bit bigger, and we're going to add one other element in a little bit too. Maybe we'll take the images of bird here, and we'll bring it over. So we have a bit of real estate there, and I like that. I kind of like the way everything's placed. We're starting to send a message here. And to add a little more dimension, what we're going to do is add some lines behind the text. And I'm going to show you how to make that a little more three-dimensional as well. So we just want to make sure the text is nice and big. And maybe we'll add it right here. This looks pretty good right here. Even out a little bit. There we go. So we got interview with the sports card investor. And then the investor part, maybe what we'll do is we're going to go to view. So what we're going to do is go to window. We're going to go to paragraph styles. Under character, we're going to go to view, and we're going to go to character. And then what we're going to do is we can adjust kind of how far these things are from one another. So again, you have things like the height, the size. We could mess with that. We can make investor look bigger. And then even things like with we could expand it. But for us, I want to make that kind of smaller. These are just cool little elements that you could do. So interview with a sports card investor. There we go. So I like that. Everything's kind of put together nice right here. Again, we're going to add the lines. Everything's going to begin to pop. So we're going to add another layer. I know it's a lot of layers. But we're going to go back and we're going to create another rectangle. And we're going to take that rectangle. And we're going to put this underneath this. Now, because we have the same colors, this is starting to look pretty good. Command T if you want to adjust anything. We want, see how the line here, how it hits the eye? I like that. We are keeping a lot of symmetry within our shot. So we are keeping a lot of symmetry within our design. And you can rename those even more as you go. We're going to duplicate the layer. And we're going to hit rectangle 6. Okay, and then 6 will go under with a. What we're going to do is make the opacity less. So as you can see here, we'll maybe even go to 70. So it's gradually changing. It's starting to look even purple. And then all this we can change too. And to find it, we just have to adjust some of this. Again, you could go like this and see exactly what you're doing. Then we'll add one more. Duplicate layer. We're going to do 7. And then with 7, so if we click on 7, and if we show it and not show it, now if we go Command T, you can go over the investor portion. And then we could go over the words here. And we could adjust the height the way we want. We could adjust everything that we need. This is going to be pretty cool. This is looking pretty interesting already. Again, the colors, not the best yet, but we're going to get into changing that. So again, we have the 3. So we're going to do the top, which is 5, and then 6, and then 7. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this a little more 3-dimensional. Then we'll get into the other final portions. So we're going to duplicate the text here. Duplicate the layer. So what we're going to do is hit the bottom one. And we're going to highlight this. And we're going to make this black. So we're going to make this dark. So now that this is black, we're going to make sure that the black is underneath the white. And we are going to shrink this down, and that's going to add a little dimension to the shot. So just a little bit subtle. We're going to bring this corner in and then the next corner in a little bit. And that's going to make everything pop a little bit more. We can identify what we want to do and make yellow. So for us, I think the sports card should be yellow. So now we have interview with a sports card investor. And then what we'll do is go over the final touches of the colors. You know, I like the red kind of pop in there. So what we can do is Command T. Then we could adjust exactly what we want to be showing here. In this rectangle, because there's images in front of it, we could also layer it like this. So we could bring this rectangle down, and now we could really get funky with what we're doing. We could even delete some of this. So we can delete what's inside there. Then we can keep moving this around. Maybe even make it match back here. And now we're just adding a little more dimension to our shot. And then we could always, you know, move the text around. We can mess around with almost anything in the image, but I'm starting to like this. You can tell that the colors are flowing, they're working together. You know, again, just go back and compare it to what we have. This is a flat like image, and then now we have something that's starting to pop. So we'll do a little more work on the rectangles. You can kind of play by just checking out the rectangles, what they're doing. Again, you can see what they're like on and off. We'll grab the paint. And maybe we'll go for a lighter color at the bottom. Just mess around with it. So that isn't looking very good. So maybe we'll go dark. We'll go really dark here. A dark type of purple. And then of course we have our opacity. Yeah, and I want to make this a nice darker blue. There we go. So that's looking pretty sweet. I like that a lot. We can adjust our text a little bit to make, you know, the shadow on the bottom left. And that's starting to look pretty good there. I like the lines, and it's similar to what we have been doing. So that's what we have. If you want, you can create your own as well. So we went from this image into something that has a lot more flair. It's popping, you know, it's looking pretty sweet. So again, what we're gonna do is just go to File, Export, PNG. From there, we're gonna call this Bird Export Sports Card Interview. So we're going to be editing this later on, and then for me, I'm going to send this to the Red Cape Learning server. So once I hit save, that will export there. We started from absolute scratch, and you know, we created something that has some color, some depth. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you in the next video.